Right. It started, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, welcome everyone to the virtual meeting of North Tyneside Council's Licensing Subcommittee. I'd just like to inform everyone that this meeting is being live streamed to the public on the Council's YouTube channel to meet the requirements of the regulations that all members of the public must, as a minimum, be able to hear the proceedings of meetings. Okay, just before we go on to the agenda, I'm going to ask everyone present to briefly introduce themselves so that everyone can identify with the participants at this meeting. Okay, so I'll go first. I'm Councillor Stephen Phillips and I'm chair of this subcommittee. Janet, I think you might be on mute.
Muted, sorry. I'm Councillor Janet Hunter and I'm a member of the Licensing Committee.
Councillor Tommy Mulvanna, I'm a member of the Licensing Committee.
Jeff Young, Licensing Officer.
And I'm John Barton, a lawyer at North Tyneside Council.
I'm John O'Shea, councillor for Whitley Bay, representing a number of residents from Whitley Bay.
I'm Dave Park and I'm the clerk.
Mr. Darwin Cooper.
I'm Sean Darlin Cooper. I'm the owner of Cork Wine and Deli.
Okay, is that everyone, Dave? Yeah.
Yes, Chair.
Right, okay, so just a few things about the meeting, okay? So can I propose the following? So obviously only one speaker at a time. Who should state the name before speaking. Only speak when invited to by the chair. And could I ask, other than myself and the other two members of the subcommittee, could you mute your microphone and turn off your video unless you are speaking, please? It would be helpful if we've got specific points talked about, if we can refer to the page number, that would be helpful. Don't do what I've just done, shuffling papers around when the mics are switched on. Basically technical issues, if the screen freezes while someone is speaking, we'll just kind of give it a little while to wait and see if things can sort themselves out, okay? If any participants lose their connection, I'll adjourn the meeting for around 5 minutes to give the opportunity of reconnecting to the meeting. Okay, unfortunately, if the connection is unable to be re-established, then the meeting will stand adjourned to stand at a later time or date, okay? Basically, the way this is going to read, first of all, we'll go to the licensing officer. The licensing officer will give their report, and then questions will be asked by A, the applicant, B, any objectors, and C, members. We'll then move on to the next one. So we'll just make a start, please, if we can. So could Jeff Young, could you give your report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This hearing is as a result of an application for the variation of an existing premises licence that has met with representations from other persons. The applicant, Mr. Darlin Cooper, submitted an application to North Tyneside Council to vary his premises licence for his premises Cork, which is now Cork Wine and Deli, 74 Whitley Road, Whitley Bay. A copy of the variation application can be found at Appendix 1, but essentially the application is to increase the times for sales of alcohol on the premises by 1.5 hours Monday to Sunday, and for off sales of alcohol by 2 hours Monday to Saturday and by 6 hours on Sunday. The application is also to increase the general opening times by an hour in the morning from 9 AM till 8 AM and in the evening from 2200 to 2300 hours, with non-standard times at Christmas and New Year. Details of the times requested are outlined in paragraph 3.2 of the report. The application also seeks to amend the internal layout of the premises in accordance with the plan attached on the last page of Appendix 1. A copy of the existing premises layout can be found on the last page of Appendix 3. The previous application for the variation of the premises licence was considered by the Licensing Committee on the 4th of August 2020, following representations received from other persons both in support and against the application. The decision of the committee was to grant the application, but to amend the conditions attached to the licence and also to amend the requested times. The details of the existing times permitted by the licence are attached at Appendix 3. Details can also be found in paragraph 2.2 of the report. The application has been circulated to all of the responsible authorities, displayed on the council's website, and the applicant has advertised the application in the local press and at the premises. As a result of the statutory consultation process, representations have been received from other persons. Copies of the representations are attached to the report in Appendix 4. The application attracted no representation from any of the responsible authorities. For members' assistance, a copy of the completed application form is attached to the report at Appendix 1. The premises location plan can be found at Appendix 2 and a copy of the existing premises licence at Appendix 3. Copies of the representations received as a result of the statutory representation period can be found at Appendix 4. Members are asked to consider the application, taking into consideration the information it has today and the representation received, and decide either to modify the conditions of the licence or to grant or reject the whole or part of the application. And that's the report, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. Okay, could I ask if the applicants have any questions or queries about the officer's report?
No, it's all hunky-dory. It's all good.
Yep, thank you. Could I ask if Councillor O'Shea, on behalf of the objectors, has any questions on the officer's report?
Yes, Mr. Young. I don't know if you were at the hearing on the 4th of August, but we had a long conversation around sitting arrangements outside of the building. Is that part of today's hearing, or is that a separate pavement licence issue? But we had a fairly long discussion about that on the 4th of August.
No, the premise, Councillor, the premises does have a pavement cafe licence, and the licence does permit off sales. So the premises is permitted to allow people to sit outside of the premises.
Yeah,
that answers your question.
But there was a big issue around the timing of when people could stop sitting outside, and that was fixed at 8 o'clock. And I don't see it in the license, the current license.
No, I think that's because it's part of the pavement cafe license. But I do believe there might be an issue with regards to the pavement cafe license and the. I don't know if Mr. Barton wants to come in, but to answer the councillor's question, I wasn't at the initial hearing.
Well,
unfortunately, I can't help you on that.
The only observation I would make is obviously the existing premises licence is attached to the agenda papers. I appreciate Mr. and Mrs. Darling Cooper, you won't have this perhaps in front of you, but at page 44 of the agenda papers at the very top there, condition number 6 is a condition that is attached to the licence, and you've heard what the application is. It's to vary the hours and extend the capacity of the premises effectively. And that's as far as the application goes. So those conditions are there on the licence. Does that answer the question?
Okay. Any other questions for the officer?
Sorry, Chair, just to pursue that. So the issue about the timing of people being able to drink outside is a licensing issue, a pavement licence issue, not an alcohol licence issue.
No, a pavement licence enables furniture to be placed on a highway.
Right.
Premises licence deals with the sale of alcohol either on or off the premises for consumption on or off the premises. So the fact that you have a pavement licence doesn't give you permission to sell alcohol if you don't have a premises licence. But obviously we're dealing with a premises here that has both a premises licence and a pavement licence.
So in the event that this application is agreed, they can use the outside the outside tables to a different time from the 8 o'clock, which we agreed on the 4th of August.
No, that's not the case. If
right,
that license, if the license condition.
I was just going to confirm that as Mr. Barton said, there is a condition 6 on the license, which requires the outside area to cease at 8 o'clock.
May I speak?
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to go, Mr.?
Yeah. Just quickly go over the pavement license. It's not been obviously. We haven't discussed that to be extended. But I would also like to point out that during the period of the last 2 years, we have been under a global pandemic called COVID-19, as we're all aware. And during that time, when I've spoken to licensing, they did say that we were allowed to have chairs out. They encouraged us to have people outside to our license time. So like till basically we could go till 10 o'clock on some days. but we didn't go through with that very much. That was covered by government guidance at the time.
Okay, that's probably something for the legal. John, would you like to come in on that?
Well, I don't know if that was the advice that you were given, but it was incorrect advice. Even though there was the pandemic, you still were required to comply with your licence conditions. What did happen was the introduction of the Business and Planning Act, which, to cut a long story short, doesn't apply to your premises, because when that act came in on the 22nd of July, your licence wasn't an on-sales licence, and therefore it wasn't automatically given off-sales because you already had it. And it wasn't a dual licence at that time, the 22nd of July 2020, because your licence only allowed off-sales. You didn't get your on-sales until the 4th of August 2020. I can explain this when we get further on into the hearing if necessary.
Okay, thanks for that, John. Councillor O'Shea, have you got any other questions for the officer's report?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Have we got any of the members of the subcommittee would like to ask anything of the officer?
I have no questions. Thank you, Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. Right, okay. So we will now move on to the representations. Councillor O'Shea, I believe you're speaking on behalf of the objectors.
Yes, that's correct, Chair. Thank you very much. I'm going to start first of all looking at page 55. I'm not quite certain if Mr. Darlin Cooper is able to follow this, but it's a
The representation from Andrea Jeffrey.
Right, okay. You got that, Mr. Darlin Cooper?
We have, yes.
Okay. I would just like to refer to a number of issues raised in this objection at page 55. On the second paragraph there, it tells you that there has been some issues around the drinking outside the premises, which we've just confirmed should all be finished by 8 o'clock. But they've been seen drinking outside at 9 o'clock. On the next paragraph there, again, it indicates that there have been transgressions of the current license where people are drinking beyond the 10 o'clock finish, which is in the current license, and people smoking outside, making a noise there. And in particular, on the 2nd of October there at 1 o'clock in the morning, customers were leaving Cork. On the 12th of November, this representation, the person had to get out of bed when she was disturbed by raised voices and laughter outside. This person lives across the road from Cork. Cork is in a small parade of shops. There must be about 10 shops, but this area is principally residential area with apartments above the shops and entirely residential opposite Cork. I'll just go down to the bottom of page 55 there, the third paragraph up. Apparently, Mr. Darlin Cooper has indicated in his application that he speaks regularly to people to find out if there's any issues. And this particular person said that's something that's never happened, and she's not aware of it herself or any of her neighbours having any contact with Mr. Darlin Cooper. So this is an illustration that currently there is noise and nuisance coming from the premises at times after 10 o'clock when they're supposed to be finished drinking, and certainly the use of the outside space, clearly up to 8 o'clock is fine, but they're drinking beyond that. I turn over the page now to page 57, Mr. Bagnall, and he tells us in his second paragraph there that that Cork is continually flouting the pavement licence arrangements, and again confirms that they're often used after 8 o'clock. Further down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Again, he mentions about the 1st of October being woken up by customers leaving Cork, and that was after 10 o'clock. And clearly there is some issue there that local residents across from the street have significant amounts of noise nuisance at times after 10 o'clock when the place should be closing down. So I think it's on the basis of that local residents are very concerned if the license hours are increased to 2300. Also, you'll probably notice in the application that the premises itself is to be extended quite significantly. I think it's almost doubling the size of the sitting inside Cork. And on the 4th of August, this is 2020 when the license and application was approved. We were told this was ancillary to the supply of cheese and other things and wine, but it's clearly grown from that. It's no longer a deli selling alcohol. It's a place of alcohol selling cheeses. So on the basis of that, I would ask you to reject this application on the basis that local residents would feel annoyed by nuisance coming from the premises, which has been proven in these submissions from local residents. That ends it. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor O'Shea. Okay. But I ask the applicant if he has any questions of Councillor O'Shea.
Yeah, just to go over some of John's points there. He says obviously that the local people are against it, but as you can see from my submissions from the other neighbours, will say, they're very supportive.
Yeah.
Also, those representations inside of what John's currently sent through are all previous representations from my original application. First and foremost, we've lost over 50 of those original letters of not support. And of those people who didn't support us originally, we have several of those who have sent in letters of support. Yeah. In terms of being a noise nuisance, we've been open for over 700 days. We have been recently featured in the Guardian newspaper as a reason to come to Whitley Bay, in the national newspaper as a reason to come to Whitley Bay. We are very much a flagship for this area of Whitley Bay.
Yeah.
In terms of the specifics of times and dates, going back to the being open for over 700 days, we have maybe 4 or 5 days of indiscretion that we're being accused of. I can get to those and go through them individually. I can provide CCTV evidence against the nature of these events if needed. Let's just go over the 1:30 leaving time. That's all staff, that was not customers. And we had an event till 10 p.m. All customers left the shop. Then I had a team of several of my staff that began painting and cleaning the shop till around about, some of them left at 1:30, but we didn't leave till 2 o'clock. Now, I didn't know that with no noise, there hasn't been any noise complaints from that 1:30 leaving. It's just an observation of people leaving at 1:30. Now, we did leave the shop at 1:30. That's right. Staff got into taxis and left. You know, this is 1 day out of 700 days, and I will address this day. It was 1:30. We left the shop, but I'm allowed to decorate, clean down, make my shop useful for me the following day. So I feel that that 1 day out of all the 700 days, I can justify that no problem, because I didn't have people drinking in there till 1:30 at night. I had staff in there cleaning down. We had an event till 10 o'clock. Customers left at 10 o'clock as it's required. And then after that, we cleaned the shop down for several hours. The other thing about my shop, I would like just to quickly interject this. It's something new for Whitley Bay. We are not just a bar. I am a retail shop also, that people could come in if I wanted to open 24 hours a day. I can't, I could open my cheese section and my retail section 24 hours a day. I don't intend to do that. This 11 o'clock asking is for events, for cheese tasting, for wine tasting. Again, going back to in the Guardian newspaper nationally, as a reason to come to Whitley Bay for other people outside of the area.
people are moving into Whitley Bay, and one of the aspects of them to move is Cork and the
Is Cork.
shops along this little street.
So I
We
feel
do.
like the 10 shops are on our street. John was
I just-
mentioning.
Okay, I understand. I just some of what you're getting into is more about your representation when we get to you, rather than questions for Councillor O'Shea. So I appreciate what you're saying, but essentially the half one thing you're claiming was a work event, not a party.
No,
No,
it
it
wasn't.
wasn't
It wasn't.
Oh, I got you. Nobody told me.
Any questions for Councillor O'Shea specifically about what he said? Any questions rather than? Does that make sense?
Yeah, apologies.
Right. Is that okay then? So any other questions?
No questions on the last statement. No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Could I ask if the licensing officer has any questions of the objector?
I've got no questions, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you. And could I ask members, have we got any questions we'd like to ask of Councillor O'Shea's representations?
I don't have any questions, thank you, Chair.
No. Okay. Excellent. So we'll now move on to the applicant. Okay. Mr. Dolan Cooper, would you like to give your representations, please?
So we were previously told to not submit as many representations as we did in the previous one. So we didn't submit our representations as we should have. But now that they're in, we have many from, now that I know that it has to be specifically local, I've got many of our, the one above is our neighbour above. Surely they would be the person that heard the most noise generated from our store. You would think that the people nearest. The local shops that have represented for us, they obviously support. They don't hear any noise. The neighbours across the road that have put representations in from the house between two of the representations, so I believe 67, 73 and 75 represented against us, but 71, 85 and so basically it's to say that there's as many neighbours supporting, more neighbours are supporting than neighbours are against us. And also in our first round of representations, we had close to 100 neighbours against us. And I believe in this next round of representation, we've only had 4, and those 4 were original representations anyway. So for my representations, it's a lot of local people, it's a lot of local businesses, and it's people inside of Whitley Bay that show a lot of support for Cork. We have doctors that have sent you letters, we have solicitors that have sent you letters, just to show the type of clientele that our business generates.
So, for example, Kennedy Burgo at 71.
Kennedy Burgo at 71.
Samantha Lawson at 74A above us.
So there's a lot of representations to support our application from neighbours within the same vicinity as John's representations against as such. On top of that, we've got representations from across the board in Whitley Bay.
Okay, is that the end of your little presentation? Yeah.
Sean, do you want to say more? You're an asset to the...
Well, yeah, I believe we're an asset to Whitley Bay. I don't know if this is where I'm meant to be saying this type of thing, or is this just whether I'm speaking about my representations?
I mean, no. Your represent, just to clarify, your representation is basically your pitch, if you like, and then obviously you can bring in the letters of support as part of your pitch.
I understand that way. So, with us being a fledgling business in Whitley Bay, we've brought employment to Whitley Bay. We have now 3 members of staff, 5 members of staff, including myself and my wife. So we've brought employment to Whitley Bay. Of the things that seem to be representations against us, it's very small in terms of the days that we've supposedly been unthoughtful of the neighbours. Of those representations against us, we could go through them individually, But I don't believe that anything negative has really come about of those. We haven't been a continual noise pollutant, as you can see from specific days from the people. It's like on this day there was noise, on that day there was noise. So I do believe that we're an asset to Whitley Bay, and we've brought something that nobody's brought to Whitley Bay previously. We bring wine tasting and cheese tasting to a level that, you know, other cities have got. We've got a quality there that, you know, has very rarely been seen in Whitley Bay. All of our wine are pretty much served in Michelin star restaurants. We get a lot of local restaurants coming to us for wine, from the Raby Hunt down in Tees Valley, which is our only 2-star Michelin restaurant in the UK. From Pine, the guys come over from Pine quite often. Kithen, we supply wine to several businesses inside of Whitley Bay. In terms of pop-ups and things like that, we've brought people to Cork to do little sandwich pop-ups, that sort of thing, which has been like very, very popular. We put out on our social media that we did have an issue with licensing, and we've only sent through a portion of what we got because we know that it has to be local to the shop rather than local to the area. But I've got support from right across the northeast. It's something that people travel to. You know, on a Sunday, people come up from all over the area just to, you know, visit Cork, have a glass of wine. It's not a loud detriment to the area, which seems to be what I'm trying to, what I'm trying to, you know, I feel that I'm being backed into a corner in defence when I've actually got this here and going myself, because it's something I want to add. I also wanted to take into consideration that I don't want to open the shop every day till 11 p.m. at night. This is just to cover the odd event here and there. This is for wine tastings and cheese tasting events. With wine tastings, if people sort of come into the shop about 7:30, 8 o'clock after they finish work on a weekend, it limits me to an hour and a half before I've got to ask guests to leave, which is, it's made my business and that side of my business very, very difficult. I have never had any problems with, obviously, the fire brigade, the police and anything like that. Not only we haven't had any issues with the police, we work very closely with one of the local policemen, Mr. Glenn Cook, and he's willing to give his police number and things if you want to deal with it, because he's very supportive of our business. He's one of our customers, and he thinks it's a, you know, an asset to Whitley Bay again. Not to go back over things too much, but we have brought employment. To go over John's point of not speaking to neighbours, we may not speak to these people individually that have complained, but they were they originally complained about our business, and I was advised to not speak to people who were against us. Let them come and speak to me rather than me go to them. Now, I've done everything that I should have done by putting my blue letter in the window and putting it into the local press. So I've tried to make locals aware, and John's then went and made locals even more aware by putting a letter to show that we were applying through. So I feel that we do speak to the neighbours, and not only do we speak to the neighbours, several of the neighbours are here in support of us. From, you know, Mrs. Samantha Lawson upstairs to, you know, every single one of those shops on that row is sent with a letter of support. Now, what does Whitley Bay want moving forward? Like, do they want, you know, more pubs and bars, or do they want things like me where I can offer something different? We're an educational business as well. Every other Friday we're doing wine tastings, and people have been coming down in the droves to learn about wine, to be educated. This is an educational business. This is not just like, I do sell alcohol. I'm not going to, you know, deny that, but this is an educational side of alcohol. It's not pile them high, sell them cheap. My cheapest glass of wine, you know, is well beyond most bars, and my, you know,
it's not a rowdy crowd.
It's not a rowdy crowd.
It's not noisy.
You know, it's very much professionals of Whitley Bay. It's the doctors, it's the nurses, it's the firemen, it's the police, it's the people who you would probably want in your business if you owned a business.
There's smoking outside as well. It's not a lot of our customers smoke. We've got people from the flats upstairs smoking on their doorstep.
So we've got four. Yeah, sorry to speak. But we have 4 flats right next to us, and one of the flats specifically is the smoke on the doorstep daily. Now, we do sweep up as many of the cigarette butts as possible, but I don't feel that I'm contributing to the dirt.
It's a public highway, so
yeah,
it's not just our customers.
So it's to not to keep you too long, I do feel that what we're offering and what we would like to offer in this extension of the license is not the devil it seems that the pack against us seems to portray us as. We're a local employer, and we've had no issues with any of the licensing authorities since we opened.
We're friendly with the community.
And we're friendly with the community. Well, I always go community over competition. I refuse to have a coffee machine in my building because 2 doors down they sell coffee. Now, if I took their business of coffee, if I even took some of their business, they're losing out there. So I'd rather them sell all of the coffee on our little bit of street, which I call my little bit of street, our little bit of street, because that's what it is. We're all independents. We're all brand new. We're all struggling. We're all helping each other out.
So I've got Julia Deacon at 91.
Yeah, and then so I do believe that I've got a lot of local support. I've got as many local neighbours showing support, and I feel that this extension will give me the ability to do pop-up events and wine tastings more in the future without asking everybody to leave by 10 o'clock.
Okay, Mr. Darling Cooper, are you done there now yet?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Right. I'll go in order here. And first of all, can I ask if Councillor O'Shea, as the objector, has any questions of the applicant's presentation?
Just one question, Chair. Mr. Darling Cooper, you mentioned in your presentation there that the need to extend the licence to 11 o'clock was in connection with occasional cheese and wine events or wine tasting events. Rather than have the time of 11 o'clock for the whole year, you can go for temporary arrangements for specific events. Were you aware of that you can go for a temporary arrangement to cover those occasional times that you've mentioned, where you have a cheese and wine event or a wine tasting event?
For the simple reason of ease of business, I wouldn't like to be paying £25 every time I've done one of those when I could easily have that as not easily have it, but have it as a thing on my licence. Okay, right, I do believe that Whitley Bay has also got something similar. I had Mr. Ali McGillivray, who is the owner of the church hall on Roxburgh Terrace, who was recently licensed to 11 p.m. He come in to show his support the other day and have a discussion with us. And he said, obviously, he met a lot of opposition because he's not open every day. And he wanted to have the ability to open till 11 o'clock so he could just do what he wanted, when he wanted, as the things came up on offer. So if a winemaker came in from Austria and it was just on, they'd been up in Edinburgh, and all of a sudden they could come to Newcastle and do a talk that day, I couldn't put a temporary event notice in and have the ability for, say, Judith to come down and do a wine talk, because I haven't got the ability to fill in a temporary event notice, wait the 10-day period and then do that. I feel that me having the ability to do that when I want for my business is something that I would need. I also don't open till 10 o'clock every night at the minute going forward. Anyway, it's a very rare thing that I'm open past, I'm open till that time. The shop pretty much closes at 8 o'clock most nights. It's only for these, these one-off events, these features of the shop that we would like this thing. So it's if someone wants to come in and learn about wine, I don't want to be able to say, like, no, you can't come down and do an event here because I've got to put a temporary event notice in for you to come down.
Okay. Just a second question. You mentioned in your presentation that I sent a letter out to local residents. I did that. I sent a letter out to about 80 people who live near your premises, and I told them that you'd applied for this license, and I invited them to make any representations to the licensing department. I don't know if you saw the letter. You probably did, but I'm just a little bit amazed that the only people who made any representations to the licensing people were those who were against it. And you're suggesting that there are lots of people who lived locally were in favour. I'm just wondering why they didn't make that representation to the licensing people, because I think you did troll around for support on Twitter or Facebook somehow. So I'm just wondering why you think people didn't write in support to the licensing people.
I don't know. Maybe they didn't feel the need to.
They sent it to me, John, and I sent it to the licensing people.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so could I ask, just drop me pen there. Could I ask if the licensing officer has any questions of the applicant?
I've got no questions, Chair, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So now on to questions of the applicant from the members. Councillor Mulvena, you had you raised your hand first. Would you like to go?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Within the discussion there seems to be some concern about the condition for the outside area. I mean, it seems as if there's confusion between the timings that is actually on the license and the street furniture under the whatever the provision is for the outside space. I mean, what time are you actually closing the outside area? Because it seems as if there's people sitting there till goodness knows what time. And is the furniture being left outside?
So the furniture is not being left outside. It's removed. It's just cafe furniture, and it's only put out when it's not put out in bulk. It's put out as people come up. So say, for instance, Tommy, you came up yourself with a wife or with a partner, and we'd bring out a table and 2 chairs. So then say Steve then turned up with a family of 4. I'd bring out 4 chairs and a table for Steve. It's not out there constantly. There's maybe the odd, like I put 1 or 2 chairs out there just to show that we're open, but it's never ever there. And then the issues I think we're talking about at the height of summer, and we're talking about maybe a problem that has been a breakdown of communication. When I've said, because as licensing, I call up quite often to speak to them about various things. So I always try and follow what I should be doing. So no, Tommy, they haven't been left outside. They're not left outside after 8 o'clock. It's not a case of the outside area being an issue. We've had no feedback over the previous year and a half from licensing, so I don't think we've had any issues from them.
Thanks.
Okay, is that okay, Tommy?
Well, just a comment. I don't think I'll be coming down because I don't think I could afford it. The other issue on the number of letters of support that you mentioned. Of those letters of support, how many of those letters of support would you say were regular customers?
All of them?
All of them except for a couple of neighbours. The neighbours put letters of support in to say that they've never been disturbed, that type of thing. And then maybe it's going to you that the venue's not for them. It's each venue's for certain people. Maybe not for them, but it's for them to the point of showing me support. 91 comes in, 74A comes in, 71.
You don't have to go through them. Like the school register,
It's the way my brain works. I have to put everything in line. Sorry.
Right, thanks.
Okay, so does that answer your question, Tommy?
A few of customers.
At the moment, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Next up is Councillor Hunter.
Thanks, Chair. Just a bit more clarification over a couple of things that have already been raised. You talked about the occasional events, which is why you want the extension till 11 o'clock. And they're not going to be regular, but how often are we talking about these occasional events? Are they weekly, monthly? Occasional can be every Wednesday and Thursday.
So we're aiming to do a wine tasting once a month.
Okay.
And also I would love to, this is a future thing, I would love to do more food things going forward. but I'm aware if I do that, I have to apply for a hot food license. So at the minute, I'm operating like a cafe. I've got toasties, I've got cold food with the boards. But yeah, which is allowed. But I wanted to look at that in the future. Just
grow the business as we move on. Just grow the business.
It's not a daily occurrence. It's a some of the wine makers can only come at certain points of the year. It's a Christmas month. I haven't got the time for that. I've got to provide everyone's cheese boards and Wilty Bay, which I feel like I've done this year. I provided over, a few 200-300 cheese boards to the residents of Wilty Bay this year.
Okay, so we are talking about occasional, and just for my own information, because I haven't quite picked it up, the rest of the time you want to be open until what time? So
we've got a 10 o'clock license currently, and I don't want to be hanging around the shop after 10 o'clock. I'm normally away before 10 o'clock. It's we shut most nights at 8 p.m.
Okay. And my other question was, there have been some complaints that Councillor O'Shea has raised that residents locally have complained about noises, people going home at 1:30. Has anybody ever come to you and said, last night there was an issue?
No,
never.
And actually, can I ask? So thank you. That was an answer for you. Steve, I don't know if I can ask. I should have asked John O'Shea. Can I go back and ask that question to him now? Has anybody in the times since the original license was granted, has anybody gone to you, John, and complained about noise?
No,
until now.
I'm really quite disappointed with local people that they haven't drawn my attention, or indeed licensing officers' attention, to these transgressions. So I'm really quite disappointed about that. The one complaint was made to Robbie Redpath, who's the guy who issues the pavement licenses, and he came down and discussed the issue with Mr. Darling Cooper. So I've got that noted.
But you've not had any, okay?
I've had nothing directly. No.
Nobody's been down to the shop. Nobody from licensing's been to the shop ever. So Robbie Redpath hasn't been to the shop, Mr. O'Shea.
Well, I've got an email from him yesterday saying that he discussed the issue with you.
I phoned him up a few months ago.
This was in September, by the way.
Yeah, you phoned him up.
I phoned him up in September to make sure everything was going okay.
But we've received no complaints.
Right.
Okay, thank you for that. Just following on from something that Councillor Hunter asked about and you talked about in terms of food, I noticed in the new design, you talk about in future you're looking to bring in food offerings, but in the new plan you're actually taking your kitchen away and putting more tables in. I was just wondering what the thinking was behind that.
So from the original plan submitted, we never went ahead and made a kitchen. And we obviously had the kitchen on the plan as an intention, but then we found out obviously how much it costs to build a kitchen there and then. We didn't have that extra £50,000 or whatever it costs to make a commercial kitchen. It was just put onto the plan as a suggestion of future. Now that room that was going to be the kitchen, which you've got the plan submitted, that's got the chairs on. So that room's always been just an empty space, but now that we can use it for wine tasting, we don't want to use it as a kitchen. It's more of a wine tasting room. So I didn't know that I had to have exactly what I was going to be using the space for, like down on my original plan. But now that you've got the updated plan, it's just to show that back room as a space that people can use specifically for the wine tasting. That's what I've built it for.
No problem. And what does that bring the kind of the capacity of the premises up to with extra 4 tables?
The same as what it was. So with us not having the paper pack, have you got obviously the original drawing? Has that got any chairs in the back room?
No, it just says kitchen, and then the new one has got 2 tables of 4 and 2 tables of 2, and it's called the lounge.
That's it. So in the future, I would like to build a kitchen in the back. Is
that where the stock stroke office is?
So the stock stroke office is now a prep area
Right.
With a sink.
with a sink.
That's where we wash the glasses.
And then I want to use that room as the wine tasting room. So it's like it's only got the capacity for 12 people, I believe, 4, 4 and 2 and 2.
Yeah, that's correct.
So like it's just it's basically to use a space better for myself. It was already inside of my building, and it's just, you know, like to have people sat there rather than use it as a storage area.
Can I interrupt one minute?
Right.
Yes.
Can I just? I've got on page 31 a plan of what I think is what you want with that room. I don't seem to have another original plan. I don't know what page it's on.
47.
47.
Councillor.
Okay. I was looking for that.
Can I just check? Obviously, with those extra tables going in, you've obviously checked for capacity and everything. Everything is okay with the number of people you could get in there and everything.
I've had environmental health in twice, and I've sent all my plans, and I actually personally spoke to the Tynemere fire department.
And they're fine.
They're absolutely fine with everything. I've shown them the entrance and exits, the routes. They're all marked with like signs, you know, like the signs come on if there's a fire alarm. It's all very well done. I've got a top of the range fire alarm system, and everything's been like done to the standards, and we've shown the fire brigade. It's just, instead of like having boxes in there, we can have people in there.
Yep. Councillor Mulvenna, you've got your hand raised. You're still on mute there.
I'm just a little concerned when you talk about the kitchen there that you talked about £50,000. I know there's not a kitchen in the but were you actually heading to a sort of a hot food takeaway kitchen with big contraptions and that in?
No.
This is just a very posh kitchen.
So this is just more of a prep area, Mr. Mulvenna. It's just it's silver tables so that I can do like chopping and thingying on. There's a big sink in there for doing all the glasses, and there's a toasty machine in there, which is just for heating up the toasties that we do, which is like not considered fresh raw food. It's considered like a pre-cooked.
So it fits with your dairy issues rather than with a hot food takeaway.
Yeah.
Right, that's fine. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Okay. Any other questions? I've just got a few I'd like to just run through on terms of timings, just so I definitely get in my head exactly what you're asking for in terms of opening. You're asking for the opening hours to be from 8 o'clock in the morning. Is that correct? So
the shop can open, but I don't want my licensable activities. So can we have a quick chat about this one? With my shop being a retail shop, as well as being a licensed premises, I only have to stop my licensable activities between those times. Could I stay open as a cheese shop from 6 o'clock in the morning, say, till 11 p.m. without asking for any permissions?
John, would you like to come in on that one? I believe that would be correct.
So your question is, if you weren't selling alcohol, could
no, if I am selling alcohol, but I'm not actually selling it from the shop. So the shop's got it in. Yeah. We're not carrying out any licensable activity at the time, i.e. someone can't come in and buy a bottle of wine, and they can't sit down for a glass of beer or wine, but they can come in and buy a kilo of Stilton at 4 o'clock in the morning. Is that all right?
Not that
I would, but I just wanted to be. I want to know my legal standing of
Chair,
my size of my business.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair, but are we not getting away from licensable activities here? The subcommittee is here to consider a license application. If there's advice needed for other things, that should be found outside of this meeting, Chair.
Yeah, fair enough, Dave. Basically, if I go back to the original question, obviously,
I'll not answer that then.
Right, you would like to open at the minute at 8 o'clock in the morning.
I know I don't want to.
Yeah, but I understand. Yeah, semantics.
Do I have to put that if I want to open at that time, or do I just have to put when I want to have licensable activities carried out?
It's a good question. It's a bit of a grey area with the Licensing Act, but if you know in your application, there's two elements to hours. There's licensing hours and there's opening hours. And you actually indicated in your application when you are going to have people or the public on your premises, and you have a time, obviously, or times when the public will not be on the premises. Now, it's a grey area because the only way that you would be falling foul of the Licensing Act was if the premises were open beyond the permitted hours and there were licensable activities taking place at the same time. But when I say it's a grey area, if you were getting deliveries of wine at 2 in the morning, although there's no public on the premises and the premises are closed to the public, there's still activities that are linked to the licensable activities and it's creating noise. So it's a bit of a grey area. You're not going to do it. I appreciate it. But yes, it's not unusual, I suppose, for retail units to open at a certain time in the morning, perhaps news agents, but they don't then start selling that alcohol until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whenever they're permitted under the terms of the license. So yes, there can be a difference between the sales of alcohol and the time that the premises are open, although the guidance does say there should be aligned generally. But yes, there's quite often a difference because operators realise that there should perhaps not be alcohol sales at the same time as you're selling your Stilton or what have you.
Yeah, that's where we fall in. So like, I just wanted to have that as to know what the legal standpoint on that was.
Okay, well, although I'm asking the question of you, might be worth you coming in on this, John. If you could have a look at page 24, 25, John, for us, please.
Yep.
So if this is what is being requested and this is what was granted, talk us through exactly when he could open, when he could start serving alcohol, both off license, on license. Does that make sense? And we'll just see if this is what the applicant is actually understanding.
If you can look at the 2 pages, so if you look at pages 24 and 25. So what Mr. Darling Cooper is saying in his application is that the premises would be open to the public between 8 in the morning and 11 o'clock at night. That's it, page 25, box L.
Yep.
The hours that you would be actually selling the alcohol, and it differs between on sales and off sales. So for off sales, so that is alcohol that's sold for customers to take off the premises to consume. Those alcohol sales would be from 9 in the morning. And customers who wanted to purchase alcohol, whether it be wine tasting or whatever the case may be, and were going to consume that alcohol on the premises, whether it be inside or the tables and chairs outside, would be from midday until it closes at 11 o'clock. Now, the only thing that I would point out here, and I'm merely pointing this out, is that, Mr. Darling Cooper, you have the premises closing to the public at 11 p.m. But you also have your sales of alcohol finishing at 11 p.m. as well. So there's no, so if I came, and I appreciate you may not sell pints of beer or what have you, but I'm just giving an example. If I went and I've got a large glass of Pinot Grigio at 5 to 11, I would only have 5 minutes to finish that drink and be off the premises, because your closing of the premises and your last sales are the same time, if you know what I mean. So I don't know whether you've given any thought to that, whether practically you may stop selling or serving your last glass of wine at 11:15 so that I have a chance to finish my drink and then leave at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
I merely raise that as a general point, and I hope that's answered the question to everybody's satisfaction in terms of what exactly is being asked for in terms of the hours.
We would be happy to go for 10:45, last orders type of thing, like you're saying.
Leave at 11.
Yeah,
Everybody out at 11.
Yeah.
Okay, and do you still intend for the outdoor area finishing no later than 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock, we'll keep it that. I just obviously with the misunderstanding or anything like that, I need to get that sorted.
That was the COVID.
Yeah.
Okay, and basically the final thing, that, unless I think of anything else, but it's just the non-standard times. The Christmas Eve basically remaining open till 1 in the morning. What's the reasoning behind that?
I just thought if I did want any kind of Christmas Eve event, like a lot of other like places do, like you know, Riley's Fish Shop. I work with Adam quite closely at Riley's in Tynemouth, and that's something that his fish shop put in, and I just pretty much reciprocated that. I just wanted to fall in line with what other local businesses like mine have got locally. Like I'm saying, like the farmers market in Whitley Bay, they've got an 11 o'clock license, so that's obviously a problem for them because they haven't got a 10:45, so everyone's got to be away by 11 o'clock. Like finish your pint in a minute at other places. So it was just to fall in line with other businesses within the North Tyneside area that were similar in style to mine. I just wanted to be able to do what they were doing.
Give an offering to our customers.
Okay. I presume you're talking about Riley's Fish Shack on King Edward's Bay?
Fish Shop on Percy Priory, the new shop in Tynemouth. Sorry,
I only know if he's the Fish Shack.
He's got 3 new places.
Right. I mean, I'm not aware of that, but my issue with this is just thinking that with it being a residential area, you know, little bairns going to bed, waiting for Santa Claus, people coming out at 1 o'clock in the morning, I think might be a bit of an issue.
With you pointing that out, Steve, I'm more than willing to let that drop if needs be.
Okay.
You know, I'm not here to take the mick, so to speak. I'm here to work with the local people. I'm here to be part of the community rather than not.
Well, that then leads on to the New Year's Eve, because what you're proposing on New Year's Eve is that obviously the premises are closed to the public at 11 p.m. But you're proposing that the premises would be open from 11 p.m., which is the end of the permitted hours on New Year's Eve, to the start of permitted hours the following day. So that's effectively been open all through the night.
I'd literally copied and pasted that off one of the large companies in the UK as their standard thing. So I didn't really understand the writing on that myself. I did want to go a little bit later, but Steve pointing out if my Bens were falling asleep waiting for Santa, there's no way I want any kind of noise. So I'm very much willing to drop those 2 if that's the case.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Can I?
Yes, Councillor Hunter.
I understand completely about Christmas Eve, and I think that's a really good thing to want to do, not to spoil the myth. But would you want to look at extending the one on New Year's Eve, because there isn't a myth attached to New Year's Eve, except everybody stays up late to celebrate New Year, and leave that in? I
would maybe put that in as a temporary event notice, going back to what John said at first. So, like, again, going back to using your suggestions and working with you, that's very much what I'm going to do.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any more questions from any members? No? Okay then, right. So basically, everyone's been through their presentations and had the chance to ask the questions. Basically, I just want anyone who would like to sum up their representations. Okay, so first of all, I'll go to the licensing officer. Jeff, would you like to sum anything up?
No, Chair, the report's fully set out. I think everything's been covered.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay. Councillor O'Shea, would you like to sum up your presentation?
Yes, Chair, thank you for the opportunity of doing this. I think I've illustrated in my presentation, drawing on information from local residents, that there are some problems with Cork and the way they operate. I did mention a number of incidents which had occurred after hours, and Mr. Darlin Crupper was able to comment on one of them. That was the 1:30 matter. He didn't defend the other one, so I'm thinking he might not have any defence around there. But my view is that the representations from local residents who are going to be impacted by this extra opening time are such that there will be noise nuisance coming from the premises, and for that reason I ask you to reject the application.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor O'Shea. And now we'll go to the applicants. I know you've done a lot of talking today, so I understand, but it's obviously your opportunity now to sum up your presentation.
Okay, we are a unique offering in Whitley Bay, we are yet to be fully understood, I think, by some, but I don't think that's a negative. That's something that people are coming to love to enjoy of being in Whitley Bay. We're very much supported by the community, unlike what Mr. O'Shea seems to think, his 4 or 5 representations from the local community. And we've got hundreds of representations from the local community, not saying that should sway anyone's feeling, but just to quickly go over a few of the points that I feel like John's just said that I didn't have any answer for. I've got a few here. I'm just going to go over 2. I don't feel I should go through all of them to keep everybody. There's a couple saying that there was people outside smoking at 10 o'clock. We've got 2 flats next door where women live. And I believe it was these people, not us. Going back to the smoking, it's these people next door to our thing. The people, so there's things in here where it says that people were leaving. There's nothing about noise in the representations. It's just that people were seen doing this and seen doing that. Now, if people leave my shop, again, going back to any time after closing, if I keep my staff there for 2 or 3 hours cleaning up my shop and they leave via the front door, no, don't make any noise, because they haven't said that there was noise. They're just seeing people leaving. I don't think that's bad. My staff can come and go, again, as I please, and I can come and go as I please, as long as there's no noise being generated. I think people leaving at 1 o'clock in the morning getting in taxis, there was no comment about the noise. There was just the comment that there was people seen leaving the property. There's several others in here where, like, at 10 past, there's people seen walking down Whitley Road smoking outside my shop. Well, they could just be people passing my shop. There was nobody in the shop at 11 p.m. at night. So that's just to quickly go through a few of those, and they seem to be repeated. It's the same dates and times, whether all of these people were up at exactly the same time. I hope they weren't. But the shop itself is a positive for Whitley Bay. I've employed local people. I have, going back to what John said, he hasn't had any complaints personally until this was solicited over the past couple of weeks. Until John sent the letters out and made people aware that I was applying again, and then all of these indiscretions come about then. There's been no complaints by the local residents in the past 2 years. There's been no representations by any of the local authorities, be that the police or the fire brigade. And there's been no licence breaches during that time. So I feel that we've followed the rules as much as possible. We've went above and beyond in a lot of cases. And I feel that, again, we're an asset to Whitley Bay, not a hindrance.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, so that pretty much brings it to the end of the meeting. I would just want to, it's really important that in a meeting like such as this, everyone feels that they've got all their points across and they've managed to say everything they've wanted to say, and questions have been asked and answered. So can I just ask, is there anyone else who's got any further comments or anything that they think they might have missed out? It's a case of speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm going to take that deadly silence as a good thing. Okay, right then. The subcommittee will now retire and we'll make a decision, and the live stream will be switched off. I'd like to thank any members of the public who've been watching. The decision of this subcommittee will be made available on the council's website within 5 working days. Okay. Could I ask that the public part of the meeting is switched off, please?